Blog Talk Radio.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Pink Atheist. I'm your host, Rachel Johnson, and with me today are my co-hosts, Jimmy Williamson and Phil Ferguson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
We have joined up with Phil, and he will be a part of the show from now on. We have a great show planned for you today, and Phil will tell you who we have on.
Phil, do you have the list of people that you planned on bringing on today?
Yes, absolutely. My apologies for the delay. First, we're going to have Hemant Mehta, the friendly atheist, and we'll keep the introduction brief for him because pretty much everybody's going to know him, and we'll get more details when we get him on. In the second hour, we will have Derek Miller, who is the president of the Illini Secular Student Alliance, one of the largest and, in my opinion, best secular student groups in the world, and he's going to talk about the amazing things that they do. And we will also have Lauren Lane, one of the co-founders for Skepticon, which is coming up in 4 weeks, and she's going to tell us about some of the fantastic activities that are going to go on in Springfield, Missouri in 1 month.
Great.
Sounds wonderful.
And I did want to take a minute before we got into the show and tell everyone that was with us at the Alabama Free Thought Convention yesterday, thank you very much. It was a wonderful, wonderful event, and we enjoyed hearing Shelley play live. Close venue like that was amazing, getting to meet everyone, and it was a really good convention. We enjoyed it.
That's wonderful.
Well, did we want to go ahead and go into him at first?
I think we do if he's on.
Yeah, I'm going to bring him on right now.
Hemant, are you there?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How you doing, Hemant?
Excellent. It's a Sunday. Can't complain.
Yeah, you got to sleep in this morning?
Yes.
Well, that is fantastic. I know that you wanted to talk about the Secular Student Alliance and groups starting in high school specifically, and I'm very excited to get into that. But before we do, I was wondering if I could ask a favor of you.
Sure, go for it.
In the past, I've heard you give a presentation about how, as a teacher, you potentially faced risk of your job because a fundamentalist Christian group tried to get you fired. And I love that story, and I was wondering if you could spend a couple minutes telling that story to our listeners today.
Sure. The quick version of it is that, there's a bunch of these religious right groups everywhere. There's one that's local in Illinois, the Illinois Family Institute. And, a lot of times they put out these press releases to say parents should take their kids out of school on the day of silence in support of gay people. Take your kids out of school because that's going to fix the problem, as if there's some sort of issue there, And so I'll call them out on it, and I'll write about it. And there was one point when they were unhappy with something I wrote, so basically they sent an email to my school board and administrators and bosses, because I work at a high school, and they said, look at what he wrote, and he's supposed to be a role model at a high school. And, basically they were outing me as an atheist to everyone who's ranked above me in my workplace. And my bosses were basically just saying, we've seen you teach in the classroom. We know you don't talk about religion in the classroom, and what you do with your private life is your business, not ours. So they were very good about it, and nothing came of it. So I'm very fortunate. But I know in a lot of districts, they're not always that professional.
And so you ended up being just fine, even though the Christians were trying to mess with you.
Yeah, they tried. It failed. What's new?
Well, that is fantastic. What did you want to cover with the high school student groups? Can you tell me some more about that?
Sure. I'm working on a book. It'll hopefully be out in the next month or two, and it's about high school atheists and kind of the struggles they're dealing with, because I think the challenges they face are very unique compared to what college atheists have to go through, what adults who come out of the closet have to go through. And we don't really talk about it that much. We kind of hear isolated incidents of high school students standing up for their rights or trying to start a group, people like Jessica Alquist. We hear about those stories, but there are so many more of students who want to start an atheist group, and their principal tells them you're not allowed to do that, which is illegal. Or students who start a group but get criticized for it, and, they don't know whether they should back down or keep fighting the good fight. So I've been working on this for several months now, and, I'm excited for people to read it. But, yeah, that's the focus. I want high school students to start up these groups. It doesn't matter where they are. If they go to a public school and if they have any other non-curricular clubs, like a drama club or a yoga club or whatever in their school, they're allowed to have an atheist group. And, if they are an atheist, I became an atheist when I was a freshman in high school. If they are an atheist, it's a really powerful thing to have that community with other atheists at your school.
Absolutely. I support it 100%. And for those listeners who don't know, you were on the board for the Secular Student Alliance and chair for quite some time. What was the total time on that?
I was on the Secular Student Alliance board for 6 years, and I've been working with them before that, and I'm still working with them to a little bit of an extent now. But, yeah, my formal time on their board was about 6 years.
Right. Well, of course, I personally thank you for that work, and I know sometimes that can be a lot of time because I am currently on the board, and I was on the board for 3 years during your presidency, and can't say enough about the work that you did. And one of the things I would love to see is all of the college groups that we have going out and finding a local high school and trying to get a group started, make that kind of like their pet project to help the younger generation.
There's so many active college students, and they all have high school friends who are still there. And, when you're in a college group and you know how to run one and start one up and deal with the, administrators and the organizational people, go back and help your friends in high school start one up too. I mean, the rules aren't that different. They're a little different, but there's no reason college students can't go back and help the kids in high school start one too.
Yeah, I figured a 17, 18, 19-year-old college student helping out some high school students is going to be pretty easy, at least as compared to someone like me in my mid-40s showing up at the high school. That might look a little weird.
Right.
So what else you got going on, Emmett? You giving some talks coming up? You going to conventions?
You said you'll have Lauren Lane on. I'll be at Skepticon in a few weeks. But the other big thing that we're doing right now, we're working on the Light the Night Walk, which a lot of high school and college and off-campus groups are doing right now, which is trying to raise $1 million for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And those walks are going on all across the country, and we are almost more than halfway there in terms of the fundraising, but this is the big time when everyone's getting together to do these walks. So I'm really excited about that. My walk in Chicago is taking place next Saturday night, so hopefully people can join us, and all that information is at foundationbeyondbelief.org.
Foundation Beyond Belief, if you haven't checked it out, just for the listeners, please go there. You can go there now while you're listening to the show, or if you're hearing it later, see how you can get involved. Hemmett, I don't know if you knew, but we're going to have Derek, the president of the Student Alliance in University of Illinois, on in the next hour. He's going to talk about what they're doing to help raise money.
Awesome. That's great. And I love to see so many college groups coming together to support this.
Well, it is fantastic. It's amazing because I see the movement in a couple different steps, and I think you agree, but we've talked and known each other for years, that first you start questioning and you use the internet for that, and then you start finding people and you use the internet for that. And now we're moving to the next phase where we start helping people and we start changing the world with all those people we met on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited. There's a lot of people in Chicago I've only talked to online, so I'm excited to meet a bunch of them in person.
What is your talk in Skepticon going to be on?
It'll be on the High School Atheist book and sharing some of the stories that I've heard from there, because there are almost they're really heartbreaking, some of these stories. And they're also inspiring, so I'm going to talk about some of those stories.
Would you mind sharing one of those stories with us now?
You know, you guys probably know Jessica Alquist, but one of the other stories I heard from, there was a student more than a decade ago who tried to start an atheist group at his high school, and this is before, like, the new atheism boom, and his principal kept telling him, well, let's have a talk about it before you start it. So let's make an appointment and let's meet in a couple weeks to talk about it. And he did, and the student showed up, but the principal was busy that day, so he had another appointment. And he goes back a few weeks later to have the second appointment. Principal's not around again. And basically this high school senior realizes that the principal's basically pushing him off until the kid graduates. And finally, he called the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I think it was them. Basically, to tell them what's going on. And by the pressure they got from FFRF, the school granted this kid the group. He only had it for a week. And, he had a little trouble then passing it off to someone else who could take over the following year. But this is the sort of thing that you rarely see happening to any sort of Christian students who want to form a group. This is something that is almost exclusively happening to atheist students.
Absolutely, and it's wrong in every case, and the SSA is fighting the good fight, and I know that was a big part of J.T. Eberhardt's job. And he's moved to full-time blogging now, and of course, he's going to do great with that as well, but it's simply staggering the things that I've heard, the exposure I've had, everything from telling them no to this poor student who was delayed until it timed out, to telling students that it's a hate group and they can't form a hate group. There's a rule against a hate group.
Yeah, some principals have called these atheist groups hate groups, and it's like, well, what are they going to do in this so-called hate group? Oh, they're going to do community service and maybe hold debates. How hateful is that? And here's the thing. If this happens nowadays, I think students are better able to access these resources. They know about the Secular Student Alliance. They know about Freedom from Religion Foundation. They can put a stop to the crap that their school gives them and get these groups started and running and really helping people. And in some of these high schools where the groups have started and they're successful and they meet regularly, it's had a major impact on the students there. They're no longer as afraid to come out of the closet. They're not afraid to share with their friends and some of their teachers what they would never share back at home because their parents, don't allow them to be an atheist or make them go to church every week.
Well, that perception of scale, of having a compadre, someone that you can share with. I know my kids in one of their schools, we were talking about it. They had a couple of their friends over that I knew were all atheists, and they were guessing that about 5% of their class was atheistic. And I said, well, who do you know? And they started rattling off all these names. And just a few minutes of effort, they had given me so many names that I knew that the minimum was 20%, and this was freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
So just the people that were out was 20%.
When you look at the statistics, it's basically saying that nearly 33% of people under 30 are not religious. And maybe some of them believe in God, but they don't really belong to a religion. But almost a third of young people are not religious. I suspect that the numbers in high school are even higher. I don't know that for sure, but that's the way the trends seem to look. And about a quarter of the American population at large doesn't affiliate with any sort of religion. So the numbers are there. And the problem is you have a lot of high school students who think they are the only people in their group of friends or even in their communities who don't believe in God. And more likely than not, that's not the case at all. And we're trying to help them realize that.
Absolutely. So if a high school student is listening today, Hammett, and they want to start a group, or they are a college student and they know someone in high school, what should they do? What's the first step?
They should contact the Secular Student Alliance to talk about how to start a group and what, because the SSA will tell them about what the obstacles may be. So if they're prepared for them in advance, they'll probably be able to go through without a problem. But honestly, they don't even need to do that. They just got to tell their principal or whoever runs the student activities at their school that they want to start a group, find out what the requirements are, because every school is run differently, and basically follow those rules to a T. But the legal basis of this says you cannot be stopped from having an atheist group. So go ahead, call it a group for atheists, call it a secular student alliance, and go ahead and get in touch with the SSA. But more than anything, just start a group, because you never know how many other students you'll be helping until you actually start one and put up some signs and have a meeting.
If they can do nothing other than just meet once a week for 30 minutes and visit, is that worth doing?
That is so worth doing. It's unbelievable what it's like when you're surrounded by people. You don't have to censor yourself around, and you can talk about things like science and God and dealing with your parents and dating, and you don't have to censor yourself while you do it. That's a powerful thing to do at any age, but definitely in high school when you're just starting to explore a lot of these issues.
That's fantastic. I love it. I'm hoping this is going to explode, and I'm keep thinking of doing a blog post called 2013, the Year of the Atheist. Things are just lining up and things are getting ready to pop. The pressure is building, and these groups are just going to explode like crazy.
Absolutely. And I hope they follow that, and if they have any questions, there's so many ways to talk to atheists online now, not just, the different blogs, but even Reddit, even different, there's so many websites and podcasts and forums dedicated to talking about atheism that, you should never feel alone, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, there's Facebook groups, there's Twitter. It just doesn't end if you just, I remember when I was 13 and I was in confirmation class at the Methodist Church, and I had questions, and I asked my parents, and after about 30 minutes, they don't know what to tell me, so they sat me down with the minister, I guess, for an hour. And after sitting with that guy for an hour, you quickly figure out you don't want to do that again. But I later came out that year and finished confirmation because they told me it was for my parents. But if you're 13 today and you have questions, 13-year-olds generally don't talk to their parents very much. They go and type into Google.
Right.
And they get a world of information.
Absolutely.
So, Emmett, is there anything, I know your time is kind of tight today, is there anything else that you had that you want to discuss or cover or tell us about wonderful things that you're doing, speaking engagement?
All right, the other group I'm working with now is Foundation Beyond Belief, and besides the Light the Night Walk, we do so many awesome things to raise money for charity. So please check out Foundation Beyond Belief, and Friendly Atheist is my blog, and everyone should go study math.
Now, how much has Foundation Beyond Belief already raised in its short life?
In the past quarter, we're in the fourth quarter of 2012 right now, but in the third quarter we raised almost $50,000 for 5 different charities and a couple small projects in addition. And this is almost atheists trying to do good in the world.
Well, and it's one of those things that often I hear, atheists don't ever donate any money. And Foundation Beyond Belief is an aggregator, if I'm using the right words for you, to kind of collect this money so we can point to something and say, well, we do give money, and $50,000 is amazing, and it's just going to keep growing, and I expect within a few years we're going to be talking about hundreds of thousands and maybe millions.
Absolutely. This is, as someone who's been involved with several small organizations, this is the type of money that we're raising that can really make a difference in all of these groups. So it's a powerful thing to be a part of that.
What kind of groups does the money go to?
It goes to several different categories. So we have an education charity, a women's charity. Right now we have a human rights group. We even give money to religious groups as long as they're not proselytizing. But basically the way it works is we have 5 charities we pick every quarter of the year, and if you're a member, you could tell us where you want your donations to go. We vet these groups to make sure what they're doing is secular work. They're not religious. They're not proselytizing. They're just doing good. We tell you about them. We talk about what sort of impact they're having, and if you want to donate to any of them, I like to give a good chunk of my donation every month to the education charity because that means a lot to me. And this quarter we're supporting something called the Prison University Project. But at the same time, if someone really likes the environment, we're supporting a group this quarter called DC Greenworks. that helps to restore things in Washington, D.C., restore the environment. And there's also a group called Friends for a Nonviolent World, which is run by religious people, but their goal isn't to spread their faith. It's to promote peace around the world. So a lot of different charities that, we've raised over, in the years that we've been in existence, we've raised over $500,000 for these different charities. And we have over 1,000 members.
That is absolutely fantastic, and I thank you for your efforts with that. And, of course, Dale McGowan runs that, and he's doing a great work all around. Is there anything you wanted to cover last minute here before you moved on and got back to work?
And before we go any further, sorry to interrupt, guys. One of the guests said, thanks for blogging about the Kuntz cheerleader religious banners. That was directed at Hemet.
Yep.
Sure. That story is ridiculous, where you have high school cheerleaders promoting, putting Bible verses on their signs at football games, and the school basically has let them do it up to this point. And right now it's in the courts, and the judge should be making a decision later this week as to whether they're allowed to continue it or whether they need to stop it because it's unconstitutional. And if he does the right thing, he'll tell them to stop it. They're allowed to promote religion individually all they want, but when they're cheerleaders, when they're working as part of the school and they're representatives of their public high school, they can't do it.
The curious twist about that, and Hemet, you just glossed over it a little bit. I'm sure you will know the details because I know you blog on it. The school actually told them to stop. And
the school told them to stop. The superintendent told them to stop initially, but even now he's like, I think I made a mistake on that one, so he can look. He doesn't become the enemy.
The cheerleaders themselves called an attorney, and they're suing, and they got a restraining order, or a cease and desist order, I'm not sure of the right legal term, from the courts saying that they have freedom of speech and they can do whatever they want as long as the school is not endorsing it.
Right. So we'll see what the judge is this week. Right now, he's made a decision only to say, I'm going to postpone my decision and I'll deal with it later. That's been his only decision so far, so I'm very curious how he decides to rule on this one.
Yeah. Hemet, before you go, we were going to bring up a topic here in a few minutes that I think would be good for you to kick off because you've already talked about it a little bit. The most recent Pew poll that came out last week.
Yeah.
That's going to be one of the discussions we're going to have. So let's start that off with you before you do have to head out, if you would. What about the new percentages? I think it's 1 in 4 voting adults now say they're non-religious.
Yeah, 1 in 4 adults, 1 in 3 people under the age of 30. So basically the trend says the younger you are, the younger demographic you're in, the more likely you are to be non-religious, which is exactly what we've been seeing from inside the bubble, I guess, that, the number of atheists seem to be rising. We're doing a good job of getting people to come out of the closet and say they're atheists. And I don't see that number slowing down anytime soon. And I think the bigger question is what's responsible for this growth in the nuns and the unaffiliated. And you could blame it. You could say the effects are anything from a response to the religious right, the response to how religious groups have been entwined with Republican politics, and people don't like that, in politics in general, not just one party, and they want to see a backlash to that, and also just the rise of the Internet. It's so easy to fact-check your pastor and realize that what they're teaching you in church isn't the truth, and I think, the Pew Forum people did not say the Internet, but I think that's probably the biggest culprit.
Yeah,
in addition to the
I would definitely agree with that. I think the information technology is what's changing the environment. Being able to access that information is what counts. You can really change people's minds if you can actually give them fact.
Right. And I think people need to realize, again, the whole point is you're not alone if you're an atheist. So I think the numbers are surprising, but I think if you're an atheist, especially if you're living in the South, you're living in the Bible Belt, in a community that is very religious, you probably still think you're the only atheist around. And again, what all these polls show us is that you're not. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how old you are. There are so many other atheists out there.
Yeah. Living in the South, though, we do have some of the most challenging opposition to that, though. We have the Phelps. I mean, come on. We have the religious nuts in this area. So it's part of the fight here.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's all I had, Hammett, unless you had anything else.
No, not right now. Thank you again for having me on.
Well, thank you for showing up, and then we appreciate your time to visit with us.
Anytime, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Hammett.
Sure. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, on what we started with there, Rachel, what do you think about the new Pew poll?
I think that the trend is just going to continue as we go. Religion has seen its glory days, and it's falling from a lot of grace, especially with all the child molestations and the problems in the churches and the inflexible nature of religion. Plus, science education is getting more aggressive, and, it's hard to believe in fairy tales when the evidence is so overwhelmingly obvious. And I think that a lot of people are finding it harder to hide from that evidence because it's literally becoming eminent to be everywhere. So I think the Internet has helped tremendously with enlightenment. I think it's made it easier to understand our world around us and really get rid of those dogmatic ideas. And I think that eventually we'll see greater and greater numbers as we go.
And we're looking forward to it. Phil, you just mentioned something about the year 2013 and making some type of even if an informal campaign that this will be the year of the atheist. I say if not only the group that we're talking with right now, the three of us, we do that. Let's just promote something in the blogs that we have now. And for the listeners, by the way, part of bringing Phil on is that Phil has a blog, and we will be cross-promoting. In other words, we will promote his blog here as well as the show on his blog. So that will be part of the advantages to having Phil as one of our co-hosts. What do you think? Should we do it?
Well, I love it, and the thing that's amazing to tie that with this Pew Forum thing, I just did a post, 4 or 5 days ago. In case anyone doesn't know, it's skepticmoney.com. The Pew Forum used to do this survey every 15, 17 years, and this time it was only a 5-year gap between the last time they did it. And the Pew Forum not only is a recognized and well-known survey group, but they use the exact same questions, the exact same definitions, and they've been doing this survey since 1928. So it's phenomenal, and the number of nuns, the religiously unaffiliated, has gone from 5 or 6% to now I think it's 34% for those that were born between the years of 89 and 94. I may be off by a year or two there, but the growth has not just been increasing, but it's been increasing exponentially. Whether that continues or not is always a tricky guess, but I did a nice little chart where I showed all this, and it's getting faster. And I don't know if it's because people feel like they can say it now or if it's because of the Internet. I think that has a lot to do with it. But this group of nuns, of unaffiliated, which is now 20% of the population, 88% of those people say they are not looking for a religion. They're not even bothering. They're not trying anymore. Because one of the arguments that the religious people will make back is that 20%, sure, they're religiously unaffiliated, but they're looking for a church. No, they're not. Pew asks that question. 88% of those people are not looking. Doesn't mean they're atheists, but they've given up on religion. They've given up on a church body, at least. And of those people, the atheists have increased, the agnostics have increased, and when I say atheists and agnostics, I mean people that have admitted it to a survey taker. And those numbers have jumped by 50% in 5 years. What will happen in the next 5 years? I think it's just going to keep growing and keep growing faster. One of the other things that's amazing is this growth has occurred across every subgroup that they measured. Men, women, black, white, Hispanic, college grads, high school grads, high income, low income. It's amazing.
Right. And something that I'm going to do in the upcoming year is I'm going to help, in any way I can, help facilitate next year's Alabama Free Thought Convention and promote it as much as possible. And I know that it just happened yesterday, so I'm a good 364 days before next year's Free Thought Convention, but I'm going to start now. And hopefully we'll have a chance for Phil, yourself, Rachel, you'll be down, and maybe the three of us can do a podcast remote from the convention. I think that would be fun. So we'll start looking forward to that now and promote it.
I would love to do that. And you guys know, and maybe some of the listeners know, I think I mentioned it before, I was born in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, yeah. This will be right up your alley. You'll love it.
Yes. So to go back there, we moved out when I was 1, but to go back there and do a live podcast and promote this worldview from my place of birth in the middle of Alabama, I find that very exciting.
Yeah. Middle of Alabama. I'm pushing really hard, and I have no liberties to push at this point. I'm pushing really hard for Mobile. Obviously, because I can get up and go down there, and it's right around the corner. That's number one for me. But secondly, we're talking about a 2-day conference next year, and it would be really nice to have downtown Mobile, which those that know downtown Mobile know that we have a fairly good downtown area, nice bars, and it would be really fun to have that and have everybody be able to do a pub crawl between nights. Really makes the start of the next morning slow, but come on, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be great for your area.
Yeah. Well, I'm pushing. We'll see. We'll figure that out later.
I would love for us to have one of these things in every city across America, quite honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming. At least one in every state every year, like we're doing in Alabama. The Secular Coalition of America has adopted right off the bat 2 cities that I know of, Arizona and Alabama, and there's a Secular Coalition of Alabama and a Secular Coalition of Arizona. Now, I do believe there's some more in the process at the time that are incorporating in, and what that does is our smaller groups, your localized groups, it's a coalition that will allow those groups to work together. For instance, we have a group here in Mobile, and there's groups in Birmingham and Huntsville, and we will all get together and jointly have what we had yesterday, which was, the Alabama Free Thought Convention, and it brings all the groups together. Instead of each local group, like Mobile having one, we'd have maybe 30, 40, maybe even 100 people at best. If we do it statewide, that's what the coalition is helping with. So it's really nice, and I'm sure Ohio's going to get it too eventually, Rachel, and we'll do something there as well.
Yeah, I actually think that Ohio does have a kind of a get-together. I don't know that it's too huge, but I was invited down to Columbus at the end of this month for whatever it is that they do, and I just haven't had time to pay attention to what was going on with midterms and everything. But I think Ohio does a lot more. It's just as well as the South, we have our religious areas here in Ohio, and some of those are very dogmatic. And so, atheists tend to be a little bit more hush-hush up here than you would think that they would be in the North. But so, I have some checking into things here in Ohio to do, and I know there's a few great groups out there, Mid-Ohio Atheists, and I just have to get hooked up with those guys as soon as possible. So,
well, one thing you can do in Ohio, Rachel, that of course Columbus is the home to the Secular Student Alliance every summer, and next year I believe it's in the middle of July around the 12th to 14th, I'm thinking, I don't have that in front of me, they will have their annual student leadership training conference.
Mm-hmm.
It is geared to students, but anyone can sign up and pay the admission and go and see the same great speakers, interact with students. I work with students all the time. I love it because their energy, they're half my age, but they've got the energy, they've got the fire in their eyes, and they want to make the world a better place. Going to that convention is one of the single greatest joys of every year of mine, and I can't hardly wait for next summer to be there again.
Yeah, we'll just have to, you'll let me know whenever it is, and of course I'd love to go to it. I definitely want to be involved with as much atheism in Ohio as possible. Like I said, we do have some very religious sects up here. We have a lot of Amish who are very absolutely closed-minded, and so it would be nice to spread that word and get Ohio to become more secular and less dogmatic.
Absolutely, and it kind of, in my mind, it ties into an idea you and I talked about, I think it was yesterday, something I've been trying to promote a little bit, and I just had a post about it, what I called Work Together, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and actually, Brian Sapien, was that last week?
A week before last, I do believe.
He touched on this too, and he's a big believer in this, and I love him for it. This idea that we got to get all these groups and all these individuals and all of us who are trying to do this to make sure we spend a little more time and attention helping each other out. And it's one of the drives for all three of us, I think, to work together and do what we're doing now. But I'm talking to the listener here. When you see a blog post that you like, promote it, tweet about it, put it on Facebook, give it a like. If you like this podcast, promote it, share it with somebody, put it on your Facebook. If you're a blogger, when you do a blog post, link to someone else's blog post. Make sure you have a blog roll. The way these things work on the internet with the Google and Yahoo and Bing, links in and references to websites raise the ranking. And what I want to have happen is if all of us can spend 10 or 20% more effort linking, sharing, liking, when a random citizen goes and looks homeopathy up, for example, they don't find a website from a homeopathic doctor in India. They find something that to the Pink Atheist podcast has covered, or Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, where it explains to them how homeopathy is a fraud. And they go, wait a minute, I didn't know that. We need to get the facts up to the top of the list. And sharing those links is a good way for us to do that.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Well, we do need to keep moving. Oh, go ahead, Rachel, if you were going to add to this.
I was just going to say that I think that us uniting, and I did say something about that today on Twitter, I think that unity among us, even if we have all separate ideas and everything else, we're not united under the same umbrella of we want to promote atheism and at least get people thinking and rationalizing and, questioning. I think that that's a great idea, and there's nothing wrong with it. And that's what I said today is that, everything else, you can go your separate way, but we should at least stand together as atheists.
It's fascinating me. I put this idea on Reddit Atheism, and I got downvoted right away, which cracked me up because the idea that we should upvote each other more is one of the key components of this. And people would comment and say things like, this makes us into a church. I'm not asking you to believe anything that I believe. I'm not asking you to promote anything that you don't like. But if someone writes a story or does a blog post or a video or a podcast that you like, promote it. If you don't like it, cool. Do your own thing. Leave it alone. But if you find something that you don't 100% agree with but is generally atheistic, if you don't want to promote it, that's cool. Don't mark it down. Don't attack the author. You can argue, you can debate all you want because there's no way to stop that. And that's part of the magic of the atheist community, is that our ideas face the fire of reality and argumentation. But on Reddit Atheism, for example, the top posts, if you like it, upvote it. If you don't like it, don't downvote it, because the more upvotes it gets in relationship to downvotes, the higher it goes on Reddit all. And instead of maybe 3 atheism posts being in the top 50, we could have 7, 8, 10, hundreds, maybe thousands of people will see more posts about atheism than they do currently by simply not downvoting popular Reddit atheism posts. And if you don't agree with it, go in there, put in your comment, explain why it's wrong, but don't downvote it. Let it stay up there for others to see.
Good point. Very, very good point. What I was going to say is let's move on to Ed, and we're going to continue this conversation as well as get into the evolution thing. And we have, I know, one other guest, possibly 2, Lauren and Derek, I do believe.
Yep.
So let's move on to Ed and get him on and do our week in curiosity and see where we stand with that. Ed, are you there?
I am here.
All right, Ed. What do we have this week?
Well, we're going to start off with the weather report. This data comes in from October 11th. That's Sol 66 on Mars. The temperature variation there had a maximum or high of 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit, dropped to a low of negative 99.4 degrees Fahrenheit at that point in time. I think what's interesting to note here is the atmospheric pressure has been rising. This week, the data indicates it's at 7.85 millibars, and that is up from all previous data that we've come in for the last few weeks. So the atmospheric pressure in that area is on the rise. Some contributed to that, too, going into the spring season on Mars. Curiously, wind is still out of the east at 4.5 miles per hour, and that has been steady for the past few weeks.
Good. Ed, I did want to ask you a question today, since you bring us this every week. I saw a post about a rock, I do believe, that was found that they did some mineral tests on. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that for me?
Sure. The rock they're talking about has been named Jake Matejevic. And before I get into that, let me tell you a little bit about Jake. He started out as a mathematician for a few years, and then later he moved over to NASA as an engineer. Among his many contributions, he focused on the design of the 6-wheel assembly you see on Mars rovers today, and that would be Spirit, Opportunity, as well as Curiosity. Unfortunately, a few days after Curiosity landed on Mars, Jake passed away. So this is really a tribute to him and his contributions that he got us in position to not only engineer ourselves away to Mars, but also put science in a position to do some really fascinating experimentation on that planet. And so my hat's off to you, Jake. Now, about the rock itself, it's an igneous rock. That means that it was more than likely produced in a volcanic environment in magma. It was pushed up to the surface, and now let me make this clear. This is how this happens on Earth, because we have igneous rocks right here. And every time we see them, they're associated with some kind of volcanic activity. They're pushed up to the surface. They have a wide array of elemental qualities about them, and I'll get into that in a moment. What's kind of off-center, or if you was curious about this particular rock, is that it's out of place. They don't think it was deposited, let's say, by a volcanic eruption. At this point, They just don't have an answer. The data I'm going to give you in the next minute or so was actually gathered at the end of September. And that's just letting you know just how long it takes for experimental analysis to come up with a conclusion that they're comfortable with telling us, okay, because they don't want to rush this. So it's not like looking at a photograph. I know last week we talked about the flow of water on Mars and how those photographs was another piece of evidence that water did flow on Mars. When you actually do experimentation, it takes a lot longer. This data is a few weeks old, and they've been working on it over and over again to make sure they're to be as accurate as possible. So they don't know much about this rock, but they can tell you what it's made out of. There are traces of iron, magnesium, silicon, aluminum, calcium, titanium, sodium, potassium. This is a conglomeration of what we normally see in an igneous-type rock right here on Earth. Is where you have magma flowing underneath the surface of the Earth's crust. It's under great pressure, great temperature, so obviously elements are going to come together and be fused within a structure. Again, how it got there, they simply don't know that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just commenting that's interesting information. I was curious because I knew that they had done some mineral tests on it, or at least shot it with a laser and got some results back. And that was what I was curious of, as to what is it made of, and how are these instruments working to get that information?
Well, we're using what's called the ChemCam, and that's that laser that's mounted on it. This goes back to the previous data that I was just talking about. They shoot a certain spot multiple times with this laser beam. That blows away the dust, and then it produces, you can call them sparks. Other people call them plasma, but they give off a certain light, and a certain color light, I should say. And if you look at that color, you can determine what elements are present, and that's how they're coming up with this stuff. Is how you determine that this stuff is what is it made out of. You just look at the color spectrum, and it'll tell you. It's very similar to when we look at stars, and we do a spectral analysis of that, and we can tell what the star is made of and the gases and dust that it's putting out. Same thing. You're going to hear a lot about spectral analysis in the future as we get into this. This overall data right here tells us that Mars did have a geologically active past as far as volcanic activity is concerned. Unfortunately, there's nothing here that would lend any evidence that there was life or microbial life on Mars in the past. Again, though, don't panic. It's one rock. We have a long way to go here.
All right.
Okay. I think he cut out there.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I can give you the X-ray analysis actually went a little bit further, but these are just traces of what we're looking at here. There was traces of zinc. There's traces of beryllium, which is an oddball thing. There's a silicon. What they're getting at here is that this overall rock here simply came from, they're thinking now, came from a volcanic environment, but they also stated that the jury's still out on that. There's other ways this particular type of rock could be formed. So, you know, you don't want to hang your hat on anything right now. They're still in the process of trying to put all the pieces together. And as far as evidence is concerned, I think they're right to be cautious. They have a long way to go. In fact, they're going to be moving on to another area called Glenegg, where there is 3 different types of terrain that come together. It'll be interesting to see what's going on up there. That could actually lead in to some kind of active geological activity that brought those 3 pieces of terrain together. But that's going to be maybe another few weeks down the road. They're going to get the scoop going on, make sure that their internal laboratories are working, and once they complete that, they'll move on. So far, from what they've done so far, has been very illuminating. I'm encouraged on what we're finding out on Mars with respect to our own planet. We're finding out that we're alike in some ways. So that's encouraging. Me, myself, I'm eager to get over there to Mount Sharp and see what that strata holds, do some analysis there. There are several planetologists that has the hypothesis that Mars had a rough time a billion years ago in what we call the heavy bombardment, and it got hit solid maybe 4 times is their conjecture. And maybe one train of thought is maybe Mars was set up to have life, but because of these type of bombardments, that environment went away, reformed, and then we see what we're looking at today. In other words, Mars was just about to harbor life, and then it was stopped because of some type of impact. But again, that's just one theory hanging out there. There are multiple others. There's a real debate about it.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Well, we can talk about that that foreign object that Curiosity imaged as it was trying to take its first scoop to check out its mechanisms. It was a real conversation. A lot of people weighed in on it.
Okay.
Some of the theories that we're just getting, and this is just regular folks, just calling in. It was everything from beer can tabs to Kim Kardashian zipper to an artifact from the aftermath of Mickey Rourke's plastic surgery, although in that last one there, it's a real challenge on how it got there in the first place. But
yeah, and I know we're running a little bit short on time, so we could probably get to that one next week on the show.
Oh, okay. Appreciate you all giving me a listen.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, as always. It's great information.
Sure. Happy to be there.
Yeah,
thank you, Ed.
And part of the reason for that is we have the phone lines lit up, and we do have some more scheduled guests that need to be on right now due to scheduling issues. So we're going to bring them on. But also I'm not sure exactly who we have on what line, so we're going to answer each call, and if there's a call that we need to put on hold or even to talk to Ed, we'll put those on hold and come back to them. So welcome to the Pink Atheist. Well, perhaps that one was not ready. Oh,
hello?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Derek Miller. I'm the president of the Illini Secular Student Alliance.
Hi,
Hey, Derek.
Derek.
Right.
We've been waiting on you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what's that? I can't hear you.
We were
Hello?
expecting your call. You're one of the ones that we were expecting to bring on at this hour. And we also have one more. So let me go through the calls real quick, and let's see if we can find our other caller.
Okay.
Hello, welcome to the Pink Atheist.
Hello.
Hi. Is this Lauren?
This is Lauren.
Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the show.
I got the calls the first two. Great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm great to be here. Hello, everybody.
All right. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil, are you still there?
I sure am. Where do you want to go next? Do you want to get Derek in here?
Absolutely. Let's get Derek in here. I'd love to talk to him.
Well,
okay.
For those who don't know, Derek is the president of the Illini Secular Student Alliance, one of the early on and I think one of the single biggest secular student groups in the world. And you were going to tell us about some fundraising. What's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. First off, this is an awesome show. Thank you for having me on. I've never heard the weather report from Mars before, so that was very interesting.
It is. It's something that we thought would be really good for a show that has a science background.
Absolutely. So that was fascinating. Right now, we at ISA are doing the same thing that groups all over the country are doing, working with the Foundation Beyond Belief to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I couldn't be happier with everything we've done so far, our progress, and what we've got planned.
All right.
I could give you some specifics, some events we've been doing if you're interested in that.
Yeah, please talk to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So for the past 4 weeks now, we've been doing this thing called Hug an Atheist, where we head out to the quad and sell hugs. It's exactly what it sounds like. The best part is there's no overhead cost. You don't have to pay anything like that. So every cent of every dollar is going to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We've averaged, I would say, about $100 every time we've been out here doing this. Last Wednesday we did it. We made $127, which was more than we had raised, either week. We keep breaking our record every time we do this, basically. So it's incredible.
How long are you out there, Derek?
We go out there around noon on Wednesday. We'll be there till 4 o'clock, right on the quad outside of the student union.
So just kind of hanging out, enjoying the beautiful weather. You're making $100.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You get a table out there, and you just sell hugs and enjoy the weather.
I may actually charge a premium to hug that many theists.
Well, if you pay $5, you get the group hug.
Oh,
that's usually a bit of a discount too, because you get like 10 people hugging you.
Now, Derek, didn't you have someone locally famous stop by? Someone with the city?
I actually did. I ran into the mayor of Champaign the other day. He was just walking around, and he saw our booth and came over and said, "Well, I like what you're doing. Keep it up," and paid $1, and I hugged him. It was great.
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just so incredible to have that level of support from a local community member, a politician no less, someone who, could get in a lot of trouble for saying, "Hey, atheists, you're doing well, keep it up." It's just awesome that he did that and that he donated.
Yeah, and I think it would change people's attitudes towards atheists as well.
You're right. That's absolutely what it does. This is another reason why I love this event so much, because Hug an Atheist, right? People walk by, they see the sign, they hear us shouting, and they just think like, "Oh, that's strange," and it ropes them in. But once you talk to them for a minute and they understand exactly what you're doing, they love it. And so it's a really easy way to try to change a little bit about how people think about atheists.
Yeah, and it's for a great cause.
Derek, didn't you have last year a preacher or a bishop or somebody come talk?
Well, we have Brother Jed come by.
No, I didn't mean him. I meant the gentleman from Chicago who didn't believe in hell anymore.
Oh, yes, Mr. Carlton Pearson.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah, we set up this debate. It was called, "Does the Black Community Need God?" And the focus was to try to reach out and attract a more diverse crowd and discuss some serious issues, because the statistics behind the black community and, secularism, you were talking earlier about the rise of the nuns, and within African Americans, that's not something that's commonly seen. So we thought, let's figure that out. We got Jamila Bey, who is an amazing journalist, to
hear her yesterday.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah.
So we had Jamila Bey, we had Carlton Pearson. Unfortunately, Jamila's flight was canceled, so she couldn't make it. But she got some hard-hitting questions. We grilled Carlton Pearson, and it was an absolute delight to hear him flip-flop on the question of, is he a Christian? Is something I can't explain it.
He was an artist, and he could run for president because he knew how to speak and dance around words. And someone said something. They had the Christians in the crowd were just had their minds blown. And one person asked us, "How can you call yourself a Christian when you talk about Jesus like that?" And he says, "I don't call myself a Christian." And they're like, "What?" And he goes, "Okay, well I do, but."
That's exactly what happened. I did not know when we brought him in that he was actually a professional ninja. I would not have expected him to be so acrobatic.
He was truly.
But there he was doing backflips around these questions. So.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about some other things we're doing for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, in addition to doing our Hug an Atheist event, which I think Wednesday is the last day we're going to do that. We might do something called Send an Atheist to Church, where people can donate to different churches, and then I'll have to go there, I guess. But that's a similarly funny idea. I like it a lot. The best thing, well, okay, all of these things are the best thing we're doing, but my favorite thing right now is the support we've gotten from our local businesses. We went all up and down Campus Town, talking to managers, seeing if they can, fit in a donation box or something. We've got a donation box set up at an optometrist in downtown Champaign, and it's doing very well because it has more of a sophisticated clientele. We also have a little Mexican place down the street called Torticas, that has a donation box out for us, and most excitingly, we have the Aroma Cafe, which is another place in downtown Champaign that's frequented. The place is always packed when I'm in there, and we've got a donation box up there. So it's really great that so many people want to help us out with such a worthy cause.
Yeah, absolutely. That's astounding.
Now, Derek, do I understand correctly that ISA is well known for being hard-hitting and not bowing to social pressures and saying things about religion, but at the same time, you're able to have events with religious groups?
Yes, absolutely, and that's the best part. It's actually when I started getting involved with an atheist club, I never thought that my job would become reaching out to religious people, and that's actually what it was. I was the outreach chair last year before I was president, and it really turned around my perception of how many religious people are, because it was clear to me that when the cause is good, when you're fighting for something like social justice or cancer research, and people agree with you, you can put aside philosophical differences and really work to make things happen, and that's just so exciting.
That is fantastic. So you work with groups, but other times you guys have been a little difficult, I should say, and didn't you chalk the quad with some holy figure once?
Yeah, that was before my time.
Okay.
A few years ago, we did this thing called Draw Muhammad Day, where basically just like a pretty basic stick figure. It didn't have any weird caricature or anything, and there's a arrow pointing to it, said Muhammad. Put it around in a lot of places on campus, and what I can say is that I've seen the letter that the Muslim Student Association here at U of I sent us about that event. And I've actually seen the correspondence going back and forth because we keep records of all these things. And it was actually surprising that we were able to come to a mutual agreement and just say, look, I understand that you will be offended, but it is within our right to free speech to do this, and we're going to do it. And it was very strange because then they became like our number one group for service activities. If we want to team up or just have like a board game night, eat some pizza, like we met these people, we met them on rocky ground, and they actually turned out to be good friends of ours now.
Oh,
so that story had a happier ending than than you may expect. Although I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend doing that event.
Now, I recall, and I can't remember if it was this spring, I think it was a year ago, you guys did a thing on Good Friday, and I think it was called Have a Good Friday Night, and you handed out condoms on the quad.
Yeah, that was also before my time. We had this Have a Good Friday Night. It was Good Friday. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Apparently people found it quite amusing. I can't speak much about that one because I wasn't there, but similarly, for Blasphemy Day just recently, we did this thing called Blasphemy Day Debaptism. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun because I was the Pope last year for Halloween, so I had this nice robe. And I just stuck a fez on there, got a blow dryer, and I found a certificate online of, official debaptism. And we spent all day outside giving people debaptisms. And it was surprising how many people actually wanted to be debaptized.
Yeah, actually, there was a debaptism ceremony yesterday at the Alabama Free Thought, and it was my first time seeing that. That was interesting. Didn't know the power of a hairdryer could do that, but apparently it can. It can blow all the woo-woo off of you.
Yeah, it's very weak once you confront it.
Yes, absolutely. I was surprised because my pitch was basically just shouting at people and saying, "Were you baptized?" And they'd say yes, and I'd say, "Do you wish you weren't?" And they'd think about it for a second, and either they made the sign of the cross and quickly walked away from me, or they would actually go, "You know what? Yeah, I would like to be debaptized." So that was a lot of fun.
Now, for the listener, the University of Illinois is in my neck of the woods, and every so often I go down there and I work with Derek and the other students and try to help in some small way that I can. And I guess, it's probably been a month or so, month and a half. My time flies. We had Quad Day, which is the first day back to school. It's the day before classes start, and 300 different groups have tables or booths on the quad, and the Secular Student Alliance is, of course, stuck right in the middle of all the Christian groups because they don't know where else to put you.
Yeah, they have us in the religious section.
I've got the students really whipped up because a lot of the tables around the entire quad, the students just stand behind their table passively waiting for someone to stop by. Well, we get out on the sidewalk and we yell and we call out and we have little slogans and things that we say, and the students just line up to get to the laptop to sign up to get on the mailing list. It's just an amazing organization you got going there.
Oh, thank you so much. And I have to say, Phil is a total fiend when it comes to those kind of things, handing out flyers, just getting people to come over to a table and check us out. He's the best.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you. Well, Derek, anything else you want to cover?
Actually, I would love to plug just one more thing about our LLS fundraising, and that is that since the big walk, the big Light the Night walk, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society does this thing called Light the Night, and it's basically you get a walk, you walk around, you have these big balloons. It's a huge fundraising event. The one up in Chicago is so far away that we decided we would just organize our own here in Champaign. And we're going to have glow sticks. We're going to have free sandwiches provided by Silvermine Subs. pay $5, you get in. We'll raffle off a couple discounts to local businesses, and then we're gonna walk around. I think the mayor might come. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty positive about it. He might come and say a few words, and it's going to be a really exciting event.
Well, that is awesome, and you guys do great work. You're helping the future. You're providing the community for your members, and you're reaching out to other groups so that they know that being an atheist is not so bad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey,
so
if
you're
at
all
this
in
year, Derek?
Champaign, I'm sorry?
Are you guys going to Skepticon this year?
Yes, we will be going to Skepticon.
Do you know how many? Because in the past you guys have had like 20 people.
Yeah, it'll be 20 people. It'll be a big group.
Well, that is fantastic. I look forward to seeing you all, and maybe I'll buy drinks for those over 21, mind you. And
well,
thank
I
you,
turned 21 yesterday, so there we go.
Well, I guess I'm on the hook for one drink at least.
No, I'll hold you to it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm going to use a little chat about Skepticon to segue into Lauren and Derek. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much. If you can find us on Facebook, Phil, maybe you can put out a link later to our LLS fundraising page. We're about halfway to what our ultimate goal should be, and
Absolutely.
Every dollar helps.
Great, thanks.
And, of course, if you're in the Champaign-Urbana area on October 20th, you can come to our Light the Night event here in the Quad.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks
a lot, Derek.
Bye.
Have a good day.
All right.
Hey, Lauren.
Sorry about that. I cut his last second up. Lauren's back, please, still on. She's been on the whole time.
You here, Lauren?
I'm here. Hello.
Yay.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, that's cool.
So
How is everybody doing?
You got some party coming up in a couple of weeks, Lauren?
Yeah, there's this thing happening. Skepticon. That's happening in about a month.
And you're going to have, what, 50, 100 people?
You know, I think we'll be lucky if we get, 30, but, my mom's going to be there, so, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I don't think I've met your mom, have I?
No, this is actually the first year my family can come, so I'm super pumped. They're going to meet everybody, and by everybody, I mean, all 1,500 people.
I met JT's family 2 years ago. That was good fun.
Yeah, I think they've been there every year except the first. I don't know. They've been there many times. They're fun.
So what's your current estimate or your hope? How many people are you going to have?
Looks like we're going to have at least the same amount as last year, which I think we topped off at about 1,200 people. This year we're thinking around 1,500, 1,700, at the most 2,000, but I don't think we'll hit 2,000 just quite.
And this is in the middle of nowhere, Springfield, Missouri?
Well, I mean, Springfield's a happening place. You know, they've got, stuff and things there. Yeah. It's a happening town.
That was terrible wording on my part. I apologize. But in a smaller town surrounded by rural community, you run the risk of having 2,000 people showing up.
Yes. Springfield, Missouri is actually the home base for the Assemblies of God. And then I think there's at least 2 conservative colleges in the town as well as a state college. And so it's, we basically flood the downtown area with godless heathens and hope for the best.
That is awesome. Now, 2 years ago, you had a special guest next to your convention. Who was that?
The gun show?
Yes.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That got a few people a little twitchy because we had the one of the world's largest atheist conventions, and right next to it was a great big gun show celebrating the glory of Hitler and Nazism, and everyone's right to carry as much ammo as they wanted.
You know, Debbie Goddard was brave enough to infiltrate, and she said that they were actually very nice, and so it worked out. You know, everyone just stayed to themselves, and everyone was very friendly, so nothing bad happened.
So tell me about some of the speakers you got this year. Who's going to be there?
Everyone and their mom. I'm kidding. There's 20 speakers. We've got Greta Christina, Tony Payne, George Crabb, Phil. You're coming and speaking.
Indeed.
We have Sean Carroll, Amanda Neves, Jessica Alquist, Jennifer Willett, Hamat Mehta, P.Z. Myers, Rebecca Watson, Keith Jensen, James Croft, Matt Dillahunty, Deborah Hyde, David Fitzgerald, Richard Carrier, Dale Ray, Julie Galiff, Teresa McBain, and J.T. Eberhard. And that's all she
Wow. That is an amazing list.
Yeah, and a lot of the speakers have agreed to do workshops on Friday, which is something we're doing for the first time this year, from about 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday. We've scheduled...
You're psychic, because I was just going to ask about that.
Oh, my God. That works out so great. Yeah, we're doing workshops, so there's hour and half-hour-long time slots where we have various speakers doing workshops on anything from how to argue. I think PZ is doing it, and Dillahunty are doing a how to argue workshop at some point, and then the Skepticon team will be doing one, and I think, Phil, you agreed to do one, so
I'm going to do one on investing basics and how to not get scammed. One of my personal objectives is to help people use their skeptical skills. I mean, it's good fun to talk about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and psychics and, of course, homeopathy, but maybe we can use some of these skills and far more practical things like how to invest and keep your money safe. So I am honored, of course, to do anything at Skepticon. It's kind of like going home for me.
Yeah. If I remember, you're one of the first people to be like, yeah, these guys, we have it going on. And you're one of our first sponsors. You believe in us, Phil, when no one else did.
Now, remind me, how big was Skepticon 2? Because you've been there since the beginning, right? You're a founder.
Yes, yeah. I actually co-founded Skepticon with J.T. Eberpants. And I think that first year we had maybe 100 people, and we were super pumped. The next year, we just kept doubling. Like, the next year we had... like 300, and then 600, and then,
Because I know Skepticon 3, you guys were going to use a room on campus, and I thought it had a limit of 500 people.
Wow, you remember that better than I do. Okay.
Well, you already had a couple hundred people on a waiting list, and JT put out a call, or you did, saying, can someone help? Because the big problem you had was you had people that wanted to come, but you just didn't have the money for the room. But once the people would come and donate money, you could pay for the room, but you needed money up front.
Yes.
So I underwrote that. And how big was Skepticon 3? 1,000 people, 1,200 people, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I think we maybe topped 1,000.
And so I look at that, and that convention went from a cap of 500 to having well over 1,000 guests. So at least 500 extra people got to come to a free convention. I consider that the best investment I've ever made in my life. And I don't know. I'm stammering because I don't know what else to say. But,
well, we couldn't have been more thankful, though. We couldn't have done it without you.
And what's the cost this year to get in?
Oh, it's free. We've kept it free these past 5 years, yes, and we hope to maintain the freeness as we go on into the future. It's very important to us as the Skepticon team that we keep it something that anyone can come to if they can get here. The information is there if they want it.
I think one of the pure genius moves of Lauren and JT on this is this free thing that, and a lot of people come to this convention because it has all the names of any big headlining convention. You know, if you're 30, 40, 50, and you've got a nice job and you can afford it, donate a couple $100, donate $500. You might have paid that for a regular convention anyway, but what it allows to have happen is from that area, from 8 to 10 to 1,200 miles away, students drive to this free convention. I mean, the University of Illinois is going to bring over 20 students. They could never go to a convention that cost $100 per person. But because this is free, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 of the people that are going to be there are going to be young adults that are in, we were just talking about the Pew Forum survey, and it's just amazing outreach what this convention is doing. And I can't thank the both of you enough for starting this thing.
Oh, shucky darn. For us, it started as a kind of a joke. Like, what would be funny? It's like we brought some speakers into, like, Springfield, frickin' Missouri. Ha, ha, ha. And then people liked it, and we kept doing it, and it kept getting bigger. And now here we are 5 years later, being one of the biggest events to come through Springfield, Missouri. People actually listen to us whenever we say, no, really, a lot of people are coming. You should get ready. Because I know that I think a bar last year we sold them out of all their booze in one weekend.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Selling a bar out of a booze. I didn't know atheists drank.
Some of them like to partake. A little here, a little there, a little communion wine, if you will.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially the wine.
Yes. Yes, they do.
So what time does the talk start Friday? When do people need to be there?
Well, Friday we have those workshops from 10 to 4:30, and then the official starting is at 7 with Greta.
So if you're not there at 10 in the morning, you're missing shit.
Well, I mean, maybe, kind of. We figured, we had the time, and the speakers were there, and workshops are apparently this hip new thing that people are doing, and we want to jump on that train. So.
And what's the fee for the workshops?
What, who?
How much are the workshops?
The workshops are everything's free, Phil. Everything is free. And you get a workshop, and you get a workshop. I feel like Oprah over here with my workshop.
I was just going to say, do you throw in a sham wow for that too? It's free?
I know the other kid was charging $1 for hugs, but I will give them out for free.
Oh, I'll take you up on that. Was there any other parts of the event you want to talk about, Lauren? Or?
Wow, sure. Well, while we have the workshops going, David Fitzgerald is actually going to be running an atheist film festival all day in his own room. So that's also available. In
the hotel?
No, at the venue. We have at least 4 rooms rented out for workshops. So 3 of them will be dedicated to workshops, and that one is going to have a film festival all day with atheist films playing, with David hosting, essentially.
I did not know that. That is so cool.
Yeah, well, we try. We try our best.
You guys just keep adding more and more things. That is fantastic. Jimmy and Rachel, you guys got any questions for Lauren?
No, I think I'm good. Jimmy, do you have anything?
No, I wish I could be there this year. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. However, it sounds like a great thing. I want to go. I want to plan for next year.
Definitely.
It's worth going to.
We have all of our Skepticon videos from past years on the YouTube, and we're also hoping to live stream this year if we can pull it together, so you can watch it even though you can't be there.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
And I will say this, Phil, can we expect at least your live remote for that weekend?
If I can do it, I'll call in from there and talk to you guys and give you an update. This show is late enough on Sunday that I should be recovered from Saturday night. So it's all good. Whether it's good or bad, I'm first Saturday morning. I'm going to do a mass communion. We're gonna have a little bit of fun Saturday morning to start things off.
Excellent! I can't wait.
All right. Well, Lauren, it's great having you on. By the way,
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here and talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great. Well, Lauren, I'll see you in a month.
Yeah, you sure will.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, we have a caller. Rachel, I think you wanted to set up the next part of this segment, though. If you would, go ahead and get us rolling, and we'll bring this other caller on and see what they have to say.
Okay. The next segment that we're going to do is actually the topic for today, which is evolution. I have had a couple questions, and I want to address those. I don't know if we want to see who the caller is first, and then we can go into those, or
sure.
I can put the questions out there.
Welcome to the Pink Atheist. Okay, well, you can go ahead and start. We have them on the line, and if someone shows up, we'll say hey to them.
Okay. One of my questions was from Brent. He's actually on my Facebook. He asked, he said, I want to know, evolution-wise, if you think human life expectancy is increasing or decreasing, and if you think our bodies may become used to the obesity and other things we do to ourselves. And I would say that I know that we are starting to live longer due to medicine and health and the availability of better food and medical care. As far as the obesity and things go, obesity is something that occurs during a person's lifetime, and what we know is that organisms tend to adapt. When we see change, we see it in gametes, which is sex cells. So you're not likely to see the adaptation in the actual human being that is grown now. Over time, if obesity continued, it takes startling tolls on the pancreas and other organs in the body. I can't see that being a beneficial thing for humans, and I think that's why so many scientists and so many doctors are concerned. Could we adapt to that? Absolutely. But it would take obesity being an onset problem from the beginning to where our bodies adapt to utilizing high quantities of sugar. When it comes to metabolizing, your brain, obviously feeds itself first and then the body, which is why we tend to store fat. When we overfeed our bodies and their cellular needs, we store it. And that's not something that we see a lot of sex cells adapting to. Babies are traditionally born average weight, average size. Now, we are seeing an increase in gestational diabetes that has been on the rise, which is actually affecting fetuses and causing them to be overly large and obese at birth, which has been shown to have very negative effects on them. So I think to adapt to that, we would have to utilize sugars in a way that our bodies just aren't ready for. And at this point, I don't see that being a positive thing. So unless some evolutionary trend tends to change drastically, it's not something that we're just going to adapt to overnight. It's something that would take hundreds, if not thousands of years to adapt to. And some people already have high metabolic rates, and a lot of that is shown to be genetics, whatever switches are turned on or turned off for metabolism. So I hope that kind of answers the question. You can never in science give a definite, because there is always the probability, even if there isn't the possibility. So.
Yeah, and so let me get this straight by that long scientific answer. So what you're saying is that our bodies possibly could adapt to being obese the way that we are generally now. The average person is obese. However, we don't really have the time. Our bodies have not had the time to adapt to it yet, and it's doing more damage. And the reason we're living longer is because of medicine and not because we're adapting. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Adaptation happens in offspring. So unless our offspring are able to adapt to those things, it's not going to happen.
Right. Interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously we're seeing people live into their 80s and 90s easily. We are seeing a lot of the older generation, living longer, having more productive lives as they live longer. A few thousand years ago, the life expectancy of a person was late 40s at best. And so now we've pushed that further, and that's been tremendous. And that trend will likely continue. But with obesity, you have to understand that we're organisms that have already evolved to our environment. Even gravity plays a role in how we develop and things like that. Everything around us, every environmental pressure affects us as organisms. So when you have a change like that is non-environmental, but basically something that we're doing to ourselves, that is different because it doesn't suit an organism to become more obese. There's no benefits for an organism to be highly obese. So, and evolution tends to trend towards things that benefit organisms, not things that tend to harm them.
All right. And the next question, do you have more?
The next question was about reducible complexity, design versus evolution. And that was from a friend of mine in Canada, Douglas. One of the points that he wanted to make there was how do you know something has evolved versus being designed? And that goes to the creation argument. And a few things that we know, I was just reading on a paper about our telomeres. We do have two telomeres that are inverted versus chimpanzees. And we share a lot of the same characteristics on our genetics as chimpanzees do. So our chromosomes are drastically like theirs. The difference is only in two different chromosomes, and those are the ones that if they were inverted on one end, it would be absolutely identical to chimpanzee DNA. However, the inversion is there, and you can actually, I'll post the paper after the show, and you can see where the telomeres actually are bound together. And that difference is astounding because basically when you're reading DNA and you go through the bases, every base is important. How it's aligned is very vital. And genetic switches are located on those bases. So when you have an inversion, you have a change in how that's going to act in its environment. And that is likely what created human beings versus us being more chimp-like. And it doesn't seem like much because out of 46 chromosomes, and they have 48, we're only two off. But two chromosomes have the power to determine how an organism behaves, how it evolves and adapts. And so when we split with those telomere changes, that created the new complex organism that is now human. And we know that it's not designed because when you look at the DNA and the chromosomes, this isn't something that a designer would design, because as much as it has benefited human beings, it could have also drastically harmed them. The fact that we survived with this chromosomal union shows that it somehow benefited in the past the organism. So that benefit has extended to us. And there are a lot more signs of a lack of a creator. When people talk about the complexity of the eye, if you look in nature, you can see every type of eye from completely uncomplex to highly evolved and complex, from just crystal-like to eagle-like, which is a 1520 vision, which is actually a higher powered vision than we have. So those are just a few things. The coccyx, which is the tailbone, which has actually grown on human beings, because when we're in utero, the coccyx shuts down, the gene switches turn off, so we don't actually grow a tail. There have been instances in which those genes did not shut off, and the person was born with a tail, and that can range anywhere from just a couple inches to almost a foot long, and that is a sign that at one time we did absolutely have a tail.
But they can't hang by a tree with that?
Huh?
Can they hang in a tree with that?
No, which is good.
Phil.
I didn't say ceiling fan. I said tree.
No, I've seen pictures of it, and I can post them, and they're absolutely medical pictures of human beings with tails, and they tend to not be as long as other primates have. But we do have examples, and it tends to be more males that are born with the tail. So whether or not this is a chromosomal error or a genetic aligned error, I'm not sure. But it is an example of the fact that no designer would definitely want to design something that is going to turn on randomly and leave a human being with a tail.
That's the feminist in you kicking out. I hear it. No. Speaking of the switches, because I'm gonna ask a question here. or actually just make a statement maybe. I watched a show once that was talking about the DNA switches and the possibilities of doing, you spoke about the tailbone that actually can grow if the switch is not programmed to switch at a certain time in utero. This also happens as we're growing older. For instance, one of the switches that does not switch in us is the one that stops your ear from growing. It grows from the time you're born to the time you die. There's other switches that they found that they could actually, if they wanted to, they could switch them manually. They've done this in insects and other animals, done some testing. They've even taken flies, two very similar flies that had a DNA strand that was pretty much identical, but one had a switch thrown that the other one didn't, and they flipped the switch in the other species, and, for instance, one had stripes on its wings. When they flipped the switch on the one that did not have stripes, it took about 3 days for the stripes to appear. And not only did they appear, but they appeared identical to the other fly. So it begs the question, could we in the future be able to go in and enhance our own DNA by flipping switches and create things or make things happen in the human body by choice, like the ability to fight off cancers, medical advancements? Does this look like it's something that's going to happen?
Well, and I want to separate those two things right there, because there are genes which are linked to creating cancer. I know that on the human chromosomes there are 60 different switches. Now, when it comes to cancer, I know that they have found some triggers for it, and that is how a protein acts on the DNA strand. So if a protein acts an abnormal way, it can actually trigger that cancer gene to become active. And when that gene becomes active, then, of course, the organism gets cancer. It sounds pretty simple, but you have to know the right way to turn off the switch. And unfortunately, some of those are not just a switch and you're turned off, but it's multiple genes that act together to trigger that switch. So as much as it can benefit an organism to turn on genes, it can also be detrimental to turn on those genes. I know in the E. coli study, what they found is after 20 years and 12 tubes in the lab, that the E. coli was able to turn on 3 different genes, which allowed it to absorb citric acid, which is something that it couldn't do before and can't do in nature. So genes are very vital because they have the potential to change the behavior of the organism. But with the good comes the bad. When you flip the switch, you're not always 100% sure what you're going to get. So that's why it has to be tested so thoroughly that you can throw the switch, because sometimes it seems like you're doing the right thing to flip that switch, but it can have some other adverse effects, because there's not just one gene located on a switch. Like I said before, there can be many genes located on a switch. And we have just learned about switches. Now we have to study exactly what they do, how they can interact with other genes, and the proteins that are going to act upon them. And cancer, as far as I know, I want to put it that way, there is a couple types of cancer that are actually genetically linked. The rest of them tend to be a failure in your MHC, and that's your major histocompatibility complex, which is actually the body's guard system. So what it does is identifies a cell that is abnormal and can potentially become cancerous, and it will go in and shut that cell down and tell it to die. And once that happens, everything's fine. When that complex starts becoming less or not working right, what happens is then cancer has the optimal circumstance to grow. And cancer is basically just a mutated cell which has not been told to die, which is allowed to grow. And those they have eternal life. I mean, when you talk about living forever. You can take a tumor into the lab, continue to grow it as long as you feed it, take tumors off of it, cut it, dice it, whatever you want to do to it, and it will continue to live. So that's the difference in the cancer. It's not always on a gene switch. If it was that simple, that would be tremendous for science. But unfortunately, there is a lot of complexity there when you're dealing with cancerous tissues.
Right. But the long and short of that is it's not impossible. Obviously, like you said, we've just recently learned of switches, and already we're getting into a point where we understand how they work. I don't see it as even being close to impossible that we could soon be able to do that. Not long term, but be able to do it in the relatively near future.
Yeah, and basically the problem that you face then is that you don't just have a few 100,000 cells, but you have a few billion cells. I think that the research with stem cells is actually the one that is going to herald us into the future, because we've learned in the last few months that you can actually send an adult cell, like a skin cell, back in and make it a pluripotent cell, which means that it can become anything. And if a cell can go back into its juvenile state before it becomes anything, we have a lot of more potential. But like I said, unfortunately, cells divide every day, and every day there is the potential for cancer to happen. We are lucky because it doesn't tend to happen because the MHC is there. So I think that along with understanding the switches, being able to have the stem cell research, we need to understand why the immune system drops like it does and how we can boost that MHC so that it doesn't fail us. And I know that one of the problems that they found in the laboratory with the MHC is you can reset the hypothalamus, which produces it. I do believe it's hypothalamus. But then you also reset the person's whole body, and that's where you face the problem. So there is so much tremendous potential there. And, yeah, learning those switches and what they do is absolutely great. And you also have to remember that not everybody has the same switches. So your genetic lineup determines all of your bases and how you are structurally built. So we have to learn what switches go where and how to utilize them. But once we do, we have the potential to do anything with them. And I think that in time, computer software will help with that.
Right. I'm going to say something that I think may actually be counterproductive to this conversation, but I think it's worth mentioning. Science has always been something that has developed chemical and biological weapons, really harmful things that have been used against humanity. I could see where being able to flip DNA switches as being a possible downfall. If you were able to just say create a chemical weapon that could transfer switches in people or create something that would transfer switches in people, that could be harmful, yes?
Well, in order to do that, you would have to find the mechanism that switches that, and it would have to be perfected. And you wouldn't just have to do that in a few genes, but you would have to create a cascade, which means that it wouldn't just happen in one cell, two cells, but basically go throughout the whole system and flip those, because every cell has its own strands of DNA. So all of those are programmed to operate together through your lymphic system. So you send signals throughout your body, but your cells work independently. And it would have to be something so potent and so powerful that could infiltrate every cell in the body. Otherwise, you could have some effects on the organism, but you're not going to see the drastic amount of effects that you might want. And it definitely would also depend upon the stage that the person is in. So if a person is still in the developmental stage or juvenile stage, it would be easier to affect them versus a full-grown adult who has already shut off a lot of growth plates and other things that occur.
Yeah. Well, that was just my zombie apocalypse add to it.
Yeah, and
it's just the sci-fi in me that's coming out. That there's a possibility, and being able to flip DNA triggers in people, I think it could obviously be used for an advantage, and I see that from the medical side. I see great potential for it. Even some scientists that I've seen have said that that there's certain switches that we know we could switch that have physically switched in people throughout their time. And one of them, which hits very close to home to me, is when you force yourself to smoke. They've actually shown that you flip a DNA switch in your body which rejects that chemical. Everyone that smokes knows that whenever they first started smoking, they got sick, they threw up, they got dizzy, they had really adverse effects to it. Once they force their body to accept it, they actually flipped a switch. That switch now not only allows the body, but actually has created the body to expect it. And that's why when you hear people say that they've been smoking or they smoked for 10 years and they've stopped and they've been quit for 20, far longer than they smoked, they still want one because that doesn't flip back. That's one that we know that we see that is tangible, that they could actually flip back. Talk about a stop smoking, that would be great.
That'd be handy.
To actually take the desire away, because it would be able to do that. But knowing that, we there's other ones that we could potentially make happen. Obviously, we would push for the good, but I still have my zombie apocalypse. Come on, gotta go there.
That's true, and also stresses in life can flip switches. So a human being can be born absolutely seeming normal, and a switch can be flipped, and they can suddenly have the onset of an adult disease. I know that that's not typically the case with diabetes, but there are other adult onset diseases that, once the body has gone through stress, and cancer is actually one of them. They're showing now that cancer tends to come on, the ones that are genetic driven, when you go through a stressful event. And your body reacts to stress by producing cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And once those cortisol levels are so high, your body starts to react to them. And there are various reactions, and those can actually be very negative and be one of the triggers, because it is a chemical response. So those can offset cancer as well as other things.
Right. I know. I just still have my zombie apocalypse thing.
Well, always good to have a plan on board.
Hey, I'm still looking for it, and as Blair Scott said yesterday, he did a little stand-up at our Alabama Free Thought Convention, and he talked about how obviously the handicap will go first, and he proposes that we use the handicap for bait.
Oh, jeez. That's terrible.
Yeah, of course, we all know Blair, and that can be expected from him. But I thought it was hilarious. We laughed our asses off for quite a while at that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that and the funny thing is, you can say what you want about the handicapped, but that doesn't guarantee, because the fun thing about genetics is that they don't always operate the way you want them to. So you can think that you have it down, and just like medicine, where you can get 90% of the people to have the same reaction consistently, and then you get 10% who have an adverse reaction or no reaction at all to it. and that's how that occurs. You're always going to have that variable in there. So even if there was some sinister person who used genetic switches against us, ultimately you're going to have a number of the population who it absolutely does nothing for. Just like I said a few weeks ago about HIV, they've actually found that 1% of the population in Africa is immune to it because the human species in history had at one time faced a virus that was similar to HIV, if not a superbug like HIV. So they carry the resistance on their DNA. So HIV can't create the proteins that it needs to replicate. So inevitably, even if part of the human race was horribly, mutilated by this genetic switch throwing, you would still have those members of the population who were completely resistant to it, and it did nothing to them. And you can't determine, basically, being handicapped doesn't determine your genetic fitness, and nor does intelligence or anything else. Genetic fitness alone is a separate entity from all other aspects of what you think about a human being.
Yeah. Hey, guys, if I can jump in real quick, I got an email from Lauren Lane, who was just on, and she wanted me to bring up two things that she failed to mention. First is, while the convention is free, they also have travel grants. So if free is not cheap enough for you, and you can benefit from a few funds, go through their site, skepticon.org, and you can look for travel grants. The other thing is they plan on having child care this year. So once again, Skepticon is cutting edge, and they're one of the first groups to provide that extra service. So if you're a family, a parent, a man or a woman, and you can't go because you need someone to take care of your child for a few hours, now you can.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
One other thing, Rachel, if you're done, I had another thought, but...
Go for it. We still have some time left, and I think I'm good on the questions that I was asked.
Okay. And I'm good on zombie apocalypse. We can continue.
Well, two quick things. The first one is fun and lighthearted. There is a brand new book out that shows the New Testament in Legos. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Brick Bible or the Brick Testament. It is a website the guy started, and he is doing every single thing in the Bible reenacted in Legos. From the Garden of Eden to the Tower of Babel, Noah's boat. It is amazing. He's been working on it for like 7-8 years, and I've done some blog posts about it over the years. And the site's switched some because years ago he got contacted by a Christian book publisher, and they wanted to put out the Genesis story and use his artwork, his photographs of Legos. And he said, sure, and they did what Christians always do, is they picked the bits that they liked, and they didn't use the photos that showed nastiness and graphic violence. And he made some money. Then they did a book on Noah, and then they did a book on the life of Jesus. And just last year he came out with the Old Testament, and just a few days ago, the brand New Testament came out, and I was so excited. I got mine ordered from Amazon. It shows up Monday. But the thing is that a lot of these images are online. His take on Revelation is just glorious. Beautiful, high-res color photographs of Lego characters and God and slaughtering all of humanity. It's just a thing of beauty.
Wow.
The other topic, totally different. In Springfield, Illinois, there is a Catholic, I guess he's a bishop, not that matters, but he put out a YouTube video where he explained to Catholics that several planks of the Democratic Party platform are, what did he call them, intrinsically evil, and that he's not there to tell you who you should vote for or how you should cast your vote, but to remind you that if you were to vote for an organization that supported intrinsic evils, that your eternal salvation would be at risk. It's Illinois Bishop Paprocki. So basically what he said was that if you vote for a Democrat, you're going to burn in hell. And it's created a lot of talk on blogs, and a lot of people have blogged about it. And it got so much attention that the Catholic Church does what it normally does. They have now taken down their own video and claimed copyright infringement against themselves. Apparently, I don't know what that's all about. But the video is now down. So in classic style, they cover up the evidence and they hide up the evidence of things that they've said and done that are bad. But it has been mirrored, and if you do a little search, you can still find it on YouTube. Well, as a response to this, a group of people in Springfield, Illinois, not Springfield, Missouri, where Skepticon is going to be, unfortunately, same name, Springfield, Illinois, next Sunday, the 21st of October, they are going to have a protest at this bishop's home cathedral, the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. They're going to show up at 9:15 in Springfield, Illinois, and walk back and forth on the public sidewalk with signs showing their displeasure. And the people that are protesting are believers and non-believers that share a common value that churches should not be telling their members how to vote. If they wish to do that and become a political organization, then they pay taxes. You can't have it both ways. So if you want to talk about a specific issue, that's fine, but coming out with something that basically calls one of the two parties, and I don't care which one it is, but you call one of the two parties intrinsically evil and tell your members that their salvation is at risk if they vote for that party is wrong. And I expect to be there, and I hopefully will get back home just in time to give you an update next week on our next podcast of how that went. Hopefully we'll have video and pictures and all kinds of fun things at this event next Sunday. So if you're in Illinois or close to Illinois and want to come and join this event, please feel free to do so. I have a blog post with all the details that's going to hit the web about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So keep our fingers crossed. With a little luck, this will take off, but this is a Pink Atheist scoop.
Cool.
That is great, and I think that they need to learn. And I had put up a link last week about the other 1,000 preachers from the pulpit were going to, cross the political lines and try to rebel to get the IRS to sue them. So this is kind of along those lines. Yeah, absolutely. If you politicize from the pulpit, you should lose your tax-exempt status and have to pay taxes. And not that I don't think churches should have to regularly anyway, but I definitely think that if you want to cross those boundaries and tell people how to vote, that you should be considered political and have to pay your due share. Otherwise,
absolutely.
Yeah, otherwise you're just taking advantage of free money for your church and using it to try to promote your own agenda.
And if we want to some future podcast, I can talk about some of the tax breaks that churches get, because they don't pay sales tax when they buy things, they don't pay property tax, but they still get services. They don't pay income tax for a lot of their employees, including janitors and football coaches, and they can take 100% of their income and claim it as a housing exemption and avoid paying tax a second time on the same money they didn't pay tax on in the first place.
Yeah, and that's absolutely absurd. That's why they're getting so big and so powerful, is because they have the resources handed to them by the government.
It's huge money. Maybe I got to just start my own religion. There you go.
All right, guys. We have just a minute left. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on the show today, and of course, welcome to our new host, Phil. And thank you, Derek. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Hemet. It was a pleasure having you all on the show. And until next week, you guys take care. And we will be back next time. And enjoy your week, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.